Howdy, I'm Tim.
And I'm Matt, and we're back in Maplewood Gardens. That's the original garden here at MrMaple.com. It's actually our parents' garden, so we have some awesome mature specimens in this garden. And today we want to talk to you about Acer Palmatum X shirasawanum Trompenburg.
We're talking about this tree right here above us. We like to get out in the garden and landscape so you can see mature specimens and see how they grow so you can figure out what they're going to look like in your garden and landscape. We love this plant. It has such a beautiful structure to it. It goes up and spreads out, and you see the structure here. It's amazing the shapes that Trompenburg has. Just a nice wider spreading form with a nice upright habit with some deep burgundy spring color.
Now what makes Trompenburg popular is that curling leaf. Each leaf has that almost little claw-like look to it. I've seen some people experiment with naming this one Dragon Claw because they didn't like the Dutch name Trompenburg, but it's a great plant and it should always go by its original name of Acer Palmatum X shirasawanum Trompenburg. Has that unique claw-like habit to it and a really unique foliage. Now this one's going to leaf out in the early spring, almost a pinkish red to then getting to more of a dark maroon. And the fall colors are quite exceptional. You can actually get more of an orangey red on this one in the fall as well.
Yeah, the fall colors on Trompenburg are to die for. Amazing colors for an upright red. I love this plant. It leaves out a little bit later than your typical Bloodgood type. Probably is a little bit because of its shirasawanum full moon influence. The leaf on this is a little bit wider as well with that cup foliage that just gives this something, a unique texture out there in the landscape.
Now you may have heard me say in some of our other videos that Cor Van Gelderen is one of my favorite plant people. So whenever he's walking around an arboretum, that's where I'm going. I'm leaving the tour group, I'm following Cor, and I'm just taking notes. And back in 2011, that's exactly what I did. The Maple Society was visiting Calmoot Arboretum, and I was walking around with Cor Van Gelderen, and he told me one of the most interesting things I've ever heard about this plant. It was actually an introduction by one of his grandparents there at Esfeld, and it was a seedling found off of Acer shirasawanum palmatifolium at Calmoot Arboretum, and then was later taken as a gift to Arboretum Trompenburg, which I also got to visit on that trip. So a really fun origin for this one, probably being one of the very first hybrids between shirasawanum and palmatum that got widely popular in the trade. Now, you'll see other new variants of this having that curling form, but Trompenburg is one of the very first to bring that unique form and texture to a hybrid Japanese maple.
So nurserymen, when we find a seedling underneath a tree, we don't just jump to conclusions and think that that tree came from that. We stop and look at the characteristics of the parent tree and the tree that's there on the ground and try to see, are those similar? Do we see something similar going on? Shirasawanum palmatifolium also has that cup down foliage that Trompenburg also displays. It's an amazing plant that I think people will definitely love in their landscape and garden with that rounded habit, that cup down foliage, and something that really stands out from your traditional red uprights.
Now, one thing I love about Trompenburg is that it's a very fast-growing tree. Trompenburg gets out there quite a bit for a Japanese maple. It's a little slower than Seiryu, but not much. This tree is typically going to grow a foot to a foot and a half of growth a year and makes a very fast-growing upright red. So it might even outperform your Bloodgood in a similar condition and get out there a little bit bigger. So that's one of the things I really love about it, but it's definitely going to give you a more unique texture in that garden. Each little leaf having that cupped look to it really stands out and contrasts exceptionally well with other Japanese maples in the landscape.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey, Japanese maples are awesome. MrMaple.com is a great place to find Japanese maples. MrMaple.com.
I really like this plant. This tree here has been in our landscape and garden. I believe this was planted as maybe a small gallon tree, probably around 2003, maybe 2004.
Yeah, it was pretty early. I think we planted this one with a rubber band still on it. We were grafting them back then, and it was a very early on planting here in Maplewood Gardens. So you can see just in the last 20 years, give or take, it's really filled out quite nicely and made an amazing specimen Japanese maple. And it's an awesome plant to provide shade for other Japanese maples. Now, Acer shirasawanum X or Acer Palmatum X Trompenburg is going to do excellent in zones 5 through 9. Shirasawanums are actually exceptionally cold tolerant and later to leaf out like Tim said, but one fun thing about this one is it can provide some shade for your other Japanese maples being a faster growing tree. It's a great way to provide a little late day shade for some other plants. Now, I recommend shade in zone 9. This one can typically do pretty good in sun up to zone 8, so very high heat tree. Now sometimes growing this one in full sun, you'll get some of that foliage that flattens out a little bit. And even on some of the newer growth, Acer Palmatum X shirasawanum Trompenburg will have a little flatter foliage. Hey, don't fear, this one doesn't revert. It may be conditional that season, but it's going to continue to cup downward on the older growth, and as it slows down, that older growth is going to become even more curled and intricate.
And I've also seen that if you give this tree a lot of fertilizer, you can actually make it a little bit flatter leaf, where if you slow down on that fertilizer, you're starting more and more of that cup foliage that shirasawanum Trompenburg is really known for. Like Matt was talking about, this is a great tree to provide shade out in the landscape and garden. Our dad actually uses this to shade his bench where he goes out and feeds the koi here at the pond behind us. And it's a great plant for that, to provide some nice shade out there in the landscape and garden. Really makes a nice canopy that you can really enjoy in your landscape and garden.
Hey, we know you're going to ask, so we'll go through it real quick. Acer Palmatum dissecting and Abishadari.
Acer Palmatum Shiranami.
And then down here we have Acer Japonicum Green Cascade. And those are just a few of the shot here at Maplewood Gardens. We have over 300 Japanese maples planted in this landscape alone, and probably a lot more than that actually, but there's a lot of Japanese maples here in this garden. We're going to be doing a tour of it at our upcoming open house on Memorial Day. So we're actually shooting this video in 2022. We're going to be doing our open house on Memorial Day with a tour of this garden, self-guided, and at a certain time we'll be doing a guided tour of this garden talking about the plants. So if you ever want to see Maplewood Gardens in person, definitely look at coming to one of our open house events. They're always on Memorial Day.
And we're excited to have this open house. We were closed for the first 2 years because we were so busy during the COVID gardener boom when everyone started gardening. And if you're out there and you're a fresh new gardener, I hope you're enjoying this video. We greatly appreciate all y'all as customers too.
Hey, we wanted to do an update on this video. We had one out before, but we were just looking at some 3 and 5 gallons there in the nursery. So we wanted to get in front of a beautiful specimen. This one's even got that older bark that's kind of that gray white. That's indicative of older Japanese maples, not necessarily indicative of specific cultivars, but really old cultivars. So you can kind of see what one of these looks like in a mature specimen. And we get a lot of requests for that. So we hope you enjoy this video. Like, subscribe, and share our content. You know, we're coming in on 10,000 subscribers. That just warms our heart. We love to know that when we're putting this content out there, you guys are enjoying it, you're sharing it, you're liking it, and it's getting out there to more gardeners, because that's really what we do this for.
Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.